It's gorgeous.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. We are live. We were just chatting about the beautiful sunny day that we have here. I don't know where all of you are joining us from, whether you're joining us live or whether you're watching this recorded, but Gail and I right now both have sunshine outside of our windows, which is delightful and definitely helps just, I think, bring about that elevation of mood, though we should be able to find peace in all different types of weather. Certainly the sunshine has a specific way that it makes you feel. So, anyway, Gail, thank you for being here. And again, thank you to everybody who's joining us. I'm going to have you introduce yourself and let everybody get to know you. But actually, before I do that, I do try to remember to just note to people that sometimes we don't catch the comments when they're coming in. I encourage you to comment. They don't always feed over, or sometimes they feed over, but we're engaged in talking, and I just don't happen to notice the comments pushing through. But I will go back and look at, and I forgot to click go live on Instagram. I will go back and look at the social media feeds and see if there's any comments or questions from anybody. So if we did miss you on any of those particular spots, please do know that we will get back to you and be able to respond to you. And with that said, Gail, again, thank you for being here. Why don't you tell everybody who you are, what you do, and then we'll chat.
Thank you, Deb. Thanks so much for having me today. It's always such a treat to sit with you and talk and to join you with your audience and mine and all that are joining us today. So welcome. I'm Dr. Gayle Myers. I'm the host of the Health Conscious Living podcast, and I'm an integrative medicine physician. I just retired from my practice, and I'm a wellness and resilience expert. I have lived being a doctor and a patient, and now I'm here to inspire health conscious living and wellness. So thank you for having me.
Excellent. I appreciate you joining. And a little anecdote I want to share. And I had, just so everybody knows, I had actually told Gail that I would probably share this story. Gail and I are in a group together, and we were at an event in person. And I happened to be having a particularly stressful moment. It wasn't like an all stressful day. Something had just happened. I don't even remember all the circumstances. I had a couple phone calls with things, with information, and I was trying to juggle what to do next. Meanwhile, in the presence of a group of people that I very much wanted to be spending time socializing with. And so sometimes, as we do, my emotions were driving kind of what decisions I was making, and I had to take a moment to pause. And as I was standing there, Gail happened to be near me having a conversation with somebody that I then kind of got brought in on, and I was noting how calm I was just talking to her, just her presence, the way that she was standing, the way that she was talking, the words that she was choosing to say. And I shared that with her. I said, I feel really calm right now. And as I recall, there was another person who's of similar demeanor that I was kind of standing in between. So I was like, oh, I've got these like bookends of peace right now. And I had shared that with you. And henceforward, we started developing a connection and a friendship and being able to talk, and have found ways that we are in alignment in regards to really wanting people to be mindful and intentional with the choices that they make about their well-being. So that's when I think of you in that calming moment. And I know that for you, that's really, whether you're talking about nutrition health, or whether we're talking about exercise health, whether we're talking about spiritual and meditative health in terms of how we ground ourselves and make sure that we're present in the moment, you want people to find that same peace that I felt kind of listening to your voice in that moment. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that and how that's important to you.
Absolutely. Actually, it's my passion. It's interesting, Deb, because if you had met me 25 years ago, you would have definitely said she is not calm. And so I've always been a meditator. I've been studying meditation and medicine simultaneously for decades. And I used to read everything I could about meditation because it was calming. It would help my anxiety and help me to be present. And so when I did find a teacher that I had been looking for that taught me how to actually stay present, to be centered and stay present and clear the moment of whatever's going on energetically, and then find that calm and be in that calm, but be energized at the same time. Because most people think of meditation as like I close my eyes and I go to sleep. No, this is different. So I got to practice this day in and day out. And the more I could calm myself, and the more I was calm, my patients would feel that. They would experience that. They could leave with that sense of calm. And so I began studying more and more about um, what happens when we do get anxious? What happens when we're stressed out? And I'll come back to that in a minute. So I got to road test this calm after I was gratefully survived a severe accident. It was a 105-mile-an-hour head-on collision and near-death experience. And it was obviously extremely traumatic, and yet I was able to keep this sense of calm in the whole process. And it took 5 years to
Mm.
recover. So I really got to practice day in and day out, because I knew if I was going to heal, my body was going to heal, I had to keep that sense of calm all the time, step by step. So it wasn't like it didn't just happen because of the trauma to the body and the experience. I mean, it was also in the near death experience, it was an extremely spiritual experience of confirmation of who we are as
Mm.
spiritual beings having a human adventure. Now, this was my human adventure, and I got to really understand what happens in healing. Like, where do we really heal from? Because I love watching people heal. And so that's, as a physician, I was like, well, where's this healing really coming from? And it's coming from a place within us that's a greater sense of connection and wellness and well-being. You could say it's a connection to God or connection to the divine. And we all have ways of having that moment or that relationship. And so for me, I had to really day in and day out come back to that center and be in that center and help my body to heal. And there were times when I would put my hands on my heart a lot. This is what I started in the beginning. I put my hands on my heart and I'd say, I love you, body. What do you need right now?
Mm.
And listen and then respond, because my body didn't really trust me. As a physician, I was always overriding my body and I was always going, and like most of us do, but then I couldn't. One day I was skiing and doing high intensity training and traveling and teaching and had a full practice and a wonderful family life. And then the next day, I could barely pick up a glass of water. So everything changed in that moment. Excuse me. And at that point, I was so grateful to be alive. And I also knew that it was a gift. Somehow in all of this, there's a gift. So I kept working and staying present and healing in this calm, because one of the greatest stressors that we all experience, one of the greatest hazards to our health, is stress.
Mm.
Because what it does to the body with cortisol rising, and what it does to the brain chemistry with the amygdala survival center that keeps us in past experiences and fight or flight, keeps us out of present time and keeps us out of being able to access that prefrontal cortex that's in present time and has higher order thinking and creativity. So I had to be able to utilize all these different pieces of knowledge and put it together so that I could stay calm, remain calm, and continue to heal. And so what I learned in the process is that this is something that you can have every day. And that regardless of what's going on, you can center, you can clear the energy, you can calm and be energized. So that's a really quick overview of how I got here. So
That's
now I love,
beautiful. Oh,
thank
God.
you. So now I love teaching people and helping them develop this.
Yeah, well, and I think, what I hear in what you're saying too is it's about awareness, right? Like when you were noting before with meditation and you were saying like it's not about falling asleep, it's about being energized. I mean, there's all different types of meditation. So sometimes it can be about what is relaxing meditation before sleep, and sometimes it's about What is relaxing meditation in the morning that's going to help rejuvenate me and prepare me for the day? And I think about the importance of when you're saying that with, combining the meditation with that kind of check in with your body, right? That's what you're doing. You're kind of checking in, because there really isn't a one size fits all. While we can say we all need rest, we all need water, we all need to be mindful, what the specific things are that are going to make us the most effective version of ourselves in any day or in any given moment aren't going to be the same for every single person. And so we need to be really self-aware and be taking time to say that, maybe what worked yesterday isn't going to work today because, maybe there's a storm coming and the pressure's different in the air. And so maybe we need to take a little extra time to do something. So we've got to really be checking in with ourselves. And it reminds me that when I was in high school into college, I was a competitive runner. And one of the things about, when you talked about like mindfulness and meditation being energizing, we try to get yourself in the right state of mind before a race, right? Variety of different ways you can do that. Sometimes you want to pace, sometimes you want to sit still. You'll see a lot of times people listening to music. At the time it was, a little cassette recorder. They don't use those anymore. Now it's all on the phone, but you had the music that you would listen to. And why is that so important, right? You think, well, your body has been training. That's what's going to run the race, but it's not just your body, it's your mind. And I would say without a doubt, I'm confident that there were many races that I did not run my best. And it had very little to do with the amount of training and preparation I had put my body through, and very much to do with where my mind was. I was losing the race when I was on the start line. Right. And I think like when you're doing that, that's, every day in some regards is a bit of a race. Not that we're trying to get to the finish, but we're trying to get to the finish in the right state of mind and in the right overall mental and physical well-being. And so we need to do that time to check in with ourselves and kind of say, what do I need right now? Do I need a stretch? Do I need to sit? Do I need to jump up and down? Right. So for me to use that example with the running, but I think in general awareness, how do you help people through that skill? Like you talked about it very beautifully, putting your hand on your heart. And so I think like that's definitely something that people could think of doing. But if you are not used to that bodily check-in, mindfulness check-in, how do you kind of get somebody from I get up in the morning and I hit the ground running to that body check-in process?
How do you feel?
Okay.
Because so much of the time we focus on the to-do list. Right? We get out of bed and we hit the ground running. I got to do this and this and this and this and this. And the body's kind of like, whoa, wait a minute. I need some water. Wait a minute. I need to breathe. Wait a minute. I need to walk. Wait a minute. And so one of the things is just stop for a second and go, well, how am I doing? How's the body feeling? And, it's interesting because you can breathe into calm. It's box breathing is another way to do it. They call it 4 square breathing. There are many different variations on this, but you inhale for 4 seconds and you hold it for 4 seconds. Then you through your nose, and then you exhale through your mouth for 4 seconds and hold it for 4 seconds. So it's a square.
Okay.
And that calms the nervous system. So all these things that help calm the nervous running will help calm your nervous system, right? You feel better, or walking, or, you can do, people love to bike, people love to dance. There's so many different ways that you can exercise that helps calm the body. But the breathing is simple. I'm thinking of things like on the go, like when you're in a conversation with somebody and things are getting really kind of tense, and you can just breathe, or you can think about if you're tired and the day is going on and you're tired and you've been on the screen too long, you can just look out the window or take a 10-minute walk.
Yeah.
And that'll help reset everything. And the reason why this is so important, Deb, is there are 2 reasons. One, we're talking about stress and managing stress, really reducing it, because that's going to make us healthier. But the thing that fascinates me as a physician and as a person and as a meditator is how the body is. So we have these amazing spirits, you could say, our souls, and we're living in these experiences called life in these bodies that we have. Excuse me, but we're not the body and we're not the experience. We're much greater but we have these amazing bodies, and they are our vehicle. And the thing that's so incredible about the human body is that it's designed to be healthy, and it can repair itself unless it's, we've taken it too far over the edge. It'll do everything it can to repair itself. So as long as we're doing things that really help our body to heal, it's amazing how it will heal. And so that's why I'm such a proponent of lifestyle health habits, because they all work together.
Right.
And the body starts to repair itself. And the next thing you know, you're feeling better.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I was excited, and then I realized you weren't finished yet. That happens sometimes.
No,
So
that's
carry on,
fine.
carry on.
That's fine. No, that's fine. Go ahead. What
No,
were you excited
I
about?
mean, I think, and it's, I think that you just said, how do you feel? Right. And I think it's the first step is part of that. Right. So it's, how do you feel is one of those action steps you can take. You can do the breathing. I love the breathing thing. You had mentioned that to me in the past, and I find myself doing it. It's nice. It's a nice even number, right? Which there's some psychological benefit to that. 4 sides, right? You can kind of wrap yourself into that. And so I think that having that particular thing in your pocket alone, even before you've even practiced the activity, is the awareness that I have something that I can do. So we remind ourselves that we have some control over some part of the situation. Because look, circumstances are going to happen. We can't
Mhm.
avoid stressful circumstances, like you just said, the life experiences that we're living. We can't avoid things that are going to happen in our lives, but we have some ability to control what we're going to do physically in the moment to try to calm how we're emotionally going to respond. And even when we are in horrible circumstances and we want a little bit of adrenaline that helps us with that fight or flight, we still want our brain to be able to function as clearly as possible in order to make the best choices. And in order to do that, we know we need oxygen. And oxygen is going to come in the form of making sure that we're doing focused breathing. So if you practice it enough when you're calm and when you're in great circumstances, or at least not terrible circumstances, it's going to be more likely that you're going to turn to that technique in a time of unpredicted or unexpected stress. And so I think like that's just such a gift for people to have that and know, look, there is something that I can do, and I don't need any equipment, and I don't need, any type of music to be playing. I don't need to be in a quiet, dark space. It's in the moment, in the situation, that you can do that, that activity. So I love that you gave that example. And I think that helps people personally, professionally, and it helps organizations when they promote those type of activities, because if people are individually calmer, they're going to be more likely to be able to communicate effectively, to collaborate with one another, to be productive and efficient in the tasks that they're doing, in addition to more thoroughly enjoying this experience of living that we're having.
Absolutely. And I'm giggling here because my meditation teacher, who recently passed, said the exact same thing about the meditation practice, like these tools, like practice these tools because you never know when you're going to need them. And you don't have to you don't want to have to think about, how do I do that? Like, how do I breathe? Right? No,
Right.
you don't have to do that. So it's so true. And the other thing I'd like to add to what you just said, which was beautiful, is that we are resilient.
Mm.
The indomitable human spirit cannot be stopped. It's incredible how resilient we are. And if we can just remember that when we're in those stressful situations, we have the capacity, we have the ability to handle it. And maybe it's in a whole new way that we've never done because we haven't had the experience to really bring that forth. And so, as long as we can remember that, between the calming and that piece, I think it puts us into a situation, any situation, where we can really be present and
Mm.
bring our best.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love that, the best, right? Like that's one of my catchphrases I use a lot, be your best you, right? It's not be the best, because we're not always going to be the best at everything in every situation. We're not going to be the best at everything in every situation, but we can be the best version of ourselves in that moment. And you think about the scientific studies that they've done, and I can't think of any of the names of them off the top of my head, but we'll take a skill that people could readily do, right? So we're not going to say like skydiving. You can't just randomly, if you've never done it before, go like, I'm going to go skydiving and everything's going to be great. Like you need training. But let's say something like you know how to shoot a basketball through a hoop, right? And assuming that people are of equal skill level, if you tell somebody, I bet you can't make that, you're probably not going to make that shot versus like, you got this. Excuse me. Chances are the person that you're speaking positively into is going to be more likely to make it. And guess what? We're carrying around a voice all day long, ours. Right. So what are we going to be telling ourselves within reason? Again, I know that you agree, you're on the same page with me. We don't want to be unrealistic. We're not going to say that we can do absolutely anything. But if we speak positively about, I'm going to bring my best self to this situation, then we're more inclined to be able to think through options that we would not have otherwise considered because we haven't already put ourselves into that box of boundaries and inability to complete the task.
Exactly. And if we keep trying to do the same old thing, we get the same old results. And so if you're really living your life, you're going to be faced with situations that are different and challenging on some level, depending on how much we put ourselves into challenging situations
Right.
called, getting out of our comfort zone. But at the same time, we have that ability. And so when we talk to ourselves in a positive light and loving voice, that changes everything. And that was something else I discovered in my recovery, was that I couldn't focus on the shoulda, coulda, woulda. That was disastrous. And so I stopped. And so anytime my mind would start to go into, well, am I going to recover? I
Right.
wouldn't go there. So it's like, am I going to fail? That's not a question.
Right.
It's like, am I going to succeed? How am I going to succeed? And speaking of failure, I like the statement failing forward
Mm,
because we learn something.
yeah.
So if we can remember that every day, we've got something new to learn, something new to gain, a way to grow, and a way to share that with others, because there are always people who are going to benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. And taking the time, I think, to prepare yourself for that without thinking that it has to fall into these qualifiers or these check boxes of what that preparation is going to look like, right? I think, again, going back to that question you ask, how do you feel in that moment, and really being responsive to yourself and being mindful. People will ask me, not a lot, but I mean, in the past, I think I was asked more than recently, well, like, how do you work from home? That would drive me crazy because like your work is with you all the time and you can't really ever close the door and get out of it. And they're like, that must be hard. And I'm like, yes, it is. Like, I do have to physically say to myself, I'm going to leave this space, right? So it might be maybe the phone rings and I'm in the kitchen and I have a conversation of something that I need to sort through. Then I'm going to walk out of the kitchen. If I'm in the office, then I walk out of the office, because there is something to be said for that physical changing of location from where you just got it to like, okay, a fresh site. So it seems silly, but like that's something I'll do sometimes. I'm like, I'm just going to walk into another room right now, because then I'm changing my physical space. And so you feel the sense of, okay, I'm not trapped in this moment. I'm not trapped in this situation. And it doesn't always, as you know, right? It's not like I do that and suddenly the answer comes to me and like, there's angels singing and the sun is shining through the ceiling and like things are great. Like there's days when like I'm pretty distraught, right? I'm like, okay, I don't know how to solve this. So it's not that we are searching for excellence in getting through stress, because we are going to have moments where that's not achieved, but we're going to shoot for giving our best effort forward and trying to do that. And so that's when we check in and we're like, okay, how do I feel? Like, let's make sure that I understand what my emotions are and that I can make effective decisions about what is the next behavior or action or decision I'm going to make. That's not driven just by my emotion in the moment. And that's where, like the breathing technique, like you talk about taking walks, those different things of like getting yourself, into a different space so that you can sort through those things.
And just like, instead of focusing on the screen, look outside,
Right.
look at something beautiful. Just
Yeah.
give the brain a break, because it needs it. And what's really interesting is that when I talk to people about, put your hands on your heart and ask your body and say, I love you, body, because that communication is something we don't usually do, right? We just keep going. But I love you, body. What do you need right now? And it's usually one word. It's usually something really simple. I
Mm.
need someone did it recently and they said bone deep rest. And I said, oh, that's interesting. Bone deep rest. And and it's so amazing to watch and just listen, because it's not complex. It's not, they're not going to, body's not going to give you a dissertation. It's going to say, I need water. I need to just go to the bathroom. I need
Right.
to just laugh a little bit, or just take a break and go let the wind,
Right.
move through my hair, or something simple. And so, yes, it's good to know that you have that all the time.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that even when we can be mindful, I'm going to speak for myself. I don't know if this is you, but like, even though I know that some of the self help or self care techniques I would say to somebody else, right? When again, whether I'm working in an organization or I'm working with an individual, there's some baseline things that I tell people. You've got to make sure you're getting enough water. When you've got to go to the bathroom, go to the bathroom. Right? Yeah, there'll be times where I'm working on something and I'm like, I got to go to the bathroom. And I'm like, well, I just got to finish this email, or I just got to, right? It's almost like we're giving ourselves these rewards, which are not rewards, they're basic necessities, but we become accustomed to having to achieve a certain amount, a certain cadence, or a certain amount of tasks that have to be completed, that we forget that our body was designed, like you said, our body was designed to heal and recover and do all these things, but it can't if you're not meeting the basic needs. So like,
Right.
I'm terrible. Like, and anybody who's watching this, feel free to be my accountability person. My husband would love it. I'm terrible about remembering to drink water. I will have 3 water bottles. I fill them up. I put them there. I put reminders on my phone. And then I get head down at the end of the day. I'm like, oh, my head hurts. I don't feel good. And I'm like, wow, I had like half of one of the bottles, and that basic thing. So when you become more mindful, you're still going to have times where you fall off the train and forget to do it. And you start meeting those basic needs of going to the bathroom when you feel like you have to go to the bathroom, and drinking your water, and taking looking outside, which is good for both mind reset, and it's also good for our eyes, which are not enjoying all of this stimulation constantly. It does start to become more habitual, and it becomes less of a have to. Instead of you forgetting to go to the bathroom, you're getting up and going to the bathroom without even thinking about it, because you hear your body and you're like, that's what I need to respond to. But I think we've gotten away from that. Part of it's the digitization of our society, but I think there were things prior to the internet that we got distracted by as well. And so when we train ourselves to think biologically about our basic needs, um, a lot of other things start to come together a lot better. We think more clearly, we sleep better, but it's hard. It's hard.
Well, that's why on the Health Conscious Living podcast, I am all about lifestyle, health habits, and meditation.
Yeah.
And I say it's simple, small investments for big returns. And,
Mm.
and so it during the pandemic, I learned a lot of this because I went on to telehealth. I wasn't seeing people in person, and I was able to coach people in their homes and talk to them about lifestyle health habits, because um, the vaccines were needed, or at the time, but what really kills the virus is our immunity, our immune system. And so what strengthens that are the lifestyle health habits. If you get enough sleep, if you're hydrated, if you're exercising, if you're breathing, if you're eating, colors of the rainbow, anti-inflammatory foods, all those things come together and strengthen the immune system. And then you feel better, you function better, and life is just better. You're a
Mm.
better problem solver. You're a better communicator, in the sense that you're present. You have much more fun probably with the family, because your fuse is not as short, right? And all those things, come together. And that's where the body is so beautiful, because when we give it what it needs, it responds in a way that supports us. Because when you think about your best day and how you feel if you wake up in the morning and you're rested and you are ready for the day, whatever that day is, and you're hydrated and you get up and do some kind of exercise, maybe you do a little journaling or just a check-in to see, set an intention for the day, have a good breakfast, and off you go. And so the day's going to go better. And so that's the way the body is. The body's going to support us the way we support the body.
Right.
And it'll do anything it can till it can't. So when we're dehydrated, our poor brains that function, really, our nervous system functions on water and glucose. And that's not to say go eat a bunch of sugar. That's not what I'm saying. Eat the right kinds of sugars and carbohydrates and proteins and fats, and all of that also balance the blood sugar. But our brains have to have hydration, that has to have water. So there's this great book that came out during the pandemic called Quench, and it was my go-to. And they did all this research on hydration. Why are people dehydrated? We're drinking all this water, bottled water, and what they found was that we're drinking water that's blank because it's been ultra filtered, which it needs to be. But the body can't absorb it. So if you take a couple drops of lemon juice and a very tiny pinch of Himalayan pink sea salt, or you put electrolytes in your water, or you put a little bit of fruit in your water, a few blueberries, a strawberry, cucumber water. Have you ever had cucumber water?
I have, and I'm writing this down because I this is a good tip for me. I love cucumber water. They usually have it at like spas. That's what I associate it with.
Right. So make your own spa. Make your own spa water. And Deb, within 10 days of hydrating every day, you will see the difference. It's amazing. And so that's one of the easiest things that we can do to take care of the body that way, is to hydrate.
I'm gonna do. I mean, it's funny. I mean, I know it, right? For years, I have reminded myself, but it is something that I do get. Particularly lately, I go through good periods and bad periods with it. But I'm like writing this down. I'm like, yeah, that's a good idea. Adding a little something to it, because I think that is part of it. It feels, because you don't feel the immediate satisfaction of hydration. It takes a minute for it to catch up with your body, especially if you're ultra depleted. And water's not particularly satisfying unless you're really hot and it's iced and it feels really good, etc. So I think there tends to be not that immediate incentive. And I think so a lot of times when we're in the rush of everything that gets done, we don't immediately feel like we need it. We have to kind of really focus on that. I do want to give a shout out. I don't know if you can see on your side, but Lynette joined and said, so glad to have caught the two of you together. Jonathan said, two amazing and beautiful people. So hello, Lynette, and hello, Jonathan. We appreciate you joining us. I did happen to catch their messages, so I wanted to give a shout out.
Nice. It's been a pleasure. What a treat.
So tell everybody now, because now everybody's intrigued. They're like, I want to be next to this person. Even if I can't physically be, I want to virtually be near this person with all of their insight and their calming demeanor. What is the best way for people to connect with you, whether it's looking to, work with your services or just follow you on social media? What's the best way for them?
You can go to my website, healthconsciousliving.inc.com. And there's a lot more information there and ways to connect with me and do private sessions. And there'll be upcoming courses. And you can connect with me. You can listen to the podcast, Health Conscious Living podcast. And you can connect with me on Instagram at Gayle Myers MD, and on Facebook and on LinkedIn.
Yeah, you're all over the place.
And YouTube.
I was just going to say, I think you're on YouTube too, right? Yeah, you've got all the content on there, and your podcast is very well received. So I hope that people will check out all of that wonderful information. And what's a final thought that you'd like to give to everybody as we end this conversation today?
My final thought is, you got this. Just remember that you are amazing. You are incredible. And you have infinite potential. So love yourself, love your body, and love your life.
Yeah. Excellent. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Gayle, for joining us. Thank you for sharing your stories, both today in this conversation and in the past, the conversations that we've had, and on social media, all this content now that you're putting out that's really inspiring and speaking into people's lives to let their body function like it wants to by treating it with the respect that it deserves. I appreciate that. And I'm grateful that you were able to so resiliently overcome what you did in order to be able to share with us the testimony of what taking care of yourself does.
Thank you for that. Yes. And see, the outcome of all of it is that you feel better.
Yeah.
And you can just enjoy your life and the people in your life, because that really was my biggest takeaway from the accident, is that it's really about love and the people in it. That's
Yeah.
what life is about. We do all these great things and great accomplishments, but when it comes right down to it, that's really it. So thank
Absolutely.
you. Thank
Absolutely.
you again.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, everybody. We appreciate you. We hope you have a beautiful rest of the day. Bye-bye.